We're going to turn our attention now to domestic violence and a report in the Detroit News highlighting that calls to domestic violence centers in Metro Detroit are up.
Both Oakland and Wayne County showing the increase while Macomb stays about the same.
Some of the shelters believe that it's due to the increase in media coverage of high-profile domestic abuse cases.
And with us today is Tanji Reese from Turning Point and Dr. Tracy Thompson from Haven. She's also a survivor of domestic violence. Good afternoon to both of you. Tanji Reese, let's start with you. Why do you think you're seeing an increase in these calls?
I think that as local cases come up and national cases come up, that there's always going to be some spikes in calls. At Turning Point, we stay consistent at about 12,000 calls annually, but we do see those increases as stories come about.
And the good thing, what is it? People see these stories and they realize the need to get help and maybe even have the courage to call and get help when they see these stories put in the spotlight?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's that, but it can also be family members calling just in case someone in their family may be experiencing. So it can be a number of things.
We do want to remind our viewers, by the way, that during this interview you can see the phone numbers up on the screen. If you are involved in a situation and you need help, please call the numbers you see on the screen. There are so many good resources in our area.
Tracy, we want to get to you. You're a survivor. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you finally sought the help you wanted.
Oh, yeah, sure. My story begins many, many years ago, and I was in an unfortunate relationship with a man who was the most abusive. And he held me as a hostage for many, many hours in our own home. I was finally set free, if you will, and I ended up in the hospital, and that's where I met a volunteer from Haven. And I was really impressed at the care that they took with me. And at that point, I just felt really loved and cared for, and really began to learn what domestic violence really was about.
Had you seen warning signs from him before?
You know, now looking back, yes, it was the yelling, it was the disrespectful words and names that he called me, it was the tone of voice.
Tracy, I wonder, a lot of people, when they hear about domestic violence cases and women being abused, they will often say, you hear them say, why did they stay? Why didn't they leave? Help our viewers understand that that is such a complicated thing, really, isn't it, the answer to that?
Yeah, Joanne, you're absolutely right. It is a very complicated issue because each person, each woman and men who are victims of domestic violence stay in relationships for many, many reasons. But I think the biggest reason probably is that they fear for their life, and that's a very real fear. However, I would say the real question that we should all want to ask is, why do they batter?
And that fear is real, Tanji. We understand leaving is actually the most dangerous time. What do you need victims to know about the importance of having a plan?
You're exactly right. Leaving is the most dangerous time. And I think even beyond what survivors need to know, I think it's important for everyone to know that survivors are the expert in their situations and they know things the best. So the main thing to remember is that there is support and there's help. There are places like Turning Point and Haven, places all across the state that are able to help survivors when they are ready to leave. But it's really up to that person. What they just need to know is that support is always there.
What can the average person do to help put an end to domestic violence? Do we have to have our eyes open and really pay attention to what's going on?
Having your eyes open is good, but a big part is being an active bystander. And that can be as simple as a person not making jokes about abuse. If they think that a family member or a friend might be experiencing abuse, not to blame them or make it seem like it's that person's fault. Offering that support, those are things that any average person can do. At some point, we're all bystanders, and I think that we all have some part in helping ending domestic violence.
Dr. Thompson, anything to elaborate from a victim's point of view?
Oh, she's absolutely right. You know, as a victim, they stay in a relationship and they don't really need to stay there. There's help, there's hope, there's haven. And as Turning Point just mentioned, there's so many different resources that are out there. I urge any woman who is in a situation or man who's being abused, seek help. There are people that are willing to help you. We've made it to the other side. I'm a survivor, and I'm willing to help anyone. And I know that there's so many opportunities out there for help. Don't stay.
How do we deal with the batterers in these situations? One of you said a little bit earlier that the big question really is, why do they batter?
Yes.
What do you want to say about that? What can we do?
Well, as a mental health therapist, a licensed therapist, there are reasons why men and women batter, and that they do need treatment. They need to be helped. Victims need help as well. But the real big issue is when someone crosses the plane of someone else's body, when they begin to abuse them physically, emotionally, financially. When they begin to do that, there's something inside of them that's not right. So they need to seek help.
But okay, so that happens, right? And how often do you hear that somebody says, but they love me, and I know they didn't mean it, and they did it one time, but they're not going to do it again. I just know it. What do you say to those women who hear, or who that's what they're seeing, they're playing in their head?
It's important to remember that with abuse, there's a lot of manipulation. So relationships don't start off abusive. A person might be nice and sweet and kind in the beginning, and they might be very loving, but they might start to show signs of abuse later. So that person may be right, and that person may think that their partner will love and care for them again. But it's our job as supporters to not judge that person for thinking that way, and knowing that manipulation is a huge part of abuse.
And hopefully anyone out there having this conversation with us, the light bulb is on, the numbers are on your screen. Thank you so much, ladies. Tanji Reese from Turning Point and Dr. Tracy Thompson from Haven, thank you so much for your time.
We appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you.